Hello everybody and welcome back to the VBTCR Championship here on iRacing. We are here at Brands Hatch for the second round of the season. Also here for races 3 and 4 as well. We're at Donington Park the first time out, where we saw Murray Nasser finish first in the first race. Then it was Dan Mould, Andreas Gilman. Race 2 was as follows, with Neil Butler, Bostian Fuss and Taria Flaten, your top 3 finishes. We are, of course, like I mentioned, here at Brands Hatch on the Indy layout, 1.944 kilometres or 1.208 miles of track to be digested. Initially opened in 1926 and has held 12 runnings of the FIA Formula 1 World Championship between the years of 1964 and 1986. And the other series it plays host to, of course, the World Touring Car Championship, the German Touring Car Championship, and the British Touring Car Championship. British Touring Car Championship in just a couple of weeks' time, making their way here for the season finale. And of course, with this season only getting underway just 2 weeks ago, the championship has never been closer. The championship standings are as follow. Dan Mould heads affairs on 92 points ahead of Neil Butler on 83. Then it's Murray Nasser on 76, followed by Taria Flaten and John Simons. That's your top 5. Then we get back to Bostian Fuss, Jack Johns, Craig Walters, Shane Dunn and Chris Ems rounds out the top 10. Followed then by Neil Stevenson, Christopher Smith, Michael Seal, Ben Denyer, Mark McCabe, Jack Newell, Derek Crowther and Scott Malcolm. Then it's Alfie McCarity, Dennis Ronsdorf, Leon Gramus, James Birch, Ryan Empringham, Andreas Gilman, Erwin van den Berg, Don Cottenham, Philip Mahon and Fraser Garrity in 28th place on 33 points. You can see there's lots of drivers vying for position. Dennis Ronsdorf, Leon Gramus and James Birch all on 42 points, so lots of chopping and changing throughout the order. The final 12 are as follows, with Tom Holland, Nick Kent, John Johnston, Dan Thornton, William Martin, Fiona Siddons, Andrew Lovesey, Dave Christie, Freddie Hewitt and Hugo Allen. Freddie Hewitt and Hugo Allen, 2 new entrants to the championship. So the team standings, of course, where a lot of the drivers really focus their attentions, maybe just keeping those consistent points rolling in. And at the moment, Ignia Motorsport very well clear, up at the top, 21 points clear after only 2 races so far this season, on 161 points. That is Impulse Racing, followed by Spud Motorsport, Ignia Motorsport Spark, the second of the Ignia Motorsport teams. Then it's Marshmallow Racing, Simply Digi Racing, followed by Full Send, Insignia. Then it's Team ORD, Luminous Racing, Pulsus Esports. Then it's SRL for, of course, Simulation Racing Leagues, Tanso Racing Group, BSR, and the rest were as follows. So qualifying has now completed, and Taria Flaten will assert himself on pole position. A 48.938 is the pole time here at Brands Hatch Indy. Then it's followed by Murray Nasser in second. Row 2 is Dan Mould and Hugo Allen, followed by Michael Seal, Freddie Hewitt, Jack Johns, Andreas Gilman, Christopher Smith, Neil Butler, Ben Denyer and John Simons start in 12th place. That is how the first 6 rows of the grid form. You can see in the background just how busy the grid is. It's lots of cars on a tiny little circuit here at Brands Hatch. So lots of action on the way. I'm sure we will see some brilliant racing throughout. The next 6 rows and 12 positions are as follows. Scott Malcolm, followed by Erwin van den Berg. Then it's Bostian Fuss and Jack Newell, Shane Dunn and Mark McCabe. And row 10 of the grid is made up of Craig Walters and Ryan Empringham. Derek Crowther has Neil Stevenson for company. And it's 23rd, James Birch, 24th, Peter Jones. So some new names working their way into the mix. And the field spread being very much shown. And you can see some of the speed from race 1 and race 2 of the season can be carried into races 3 and 4. And some of the drivers that were maybe slightly quicker at Donington Park could fall away here. There's so many different aspects of Brands Hatch compared to Donington Park. Then we get back to Alfie McCarity, Nick Kent, Tom Holland, Dom Cottenham, Dan Thornton, William Martin, Fraser Garrity, John Johnston and Leon Gramus not posting a time in qualifying. So with the race on the way, we have yet more action for you from the VBTCR Championship. So the first race of the round, the third race of the season. In just a few moments' time, we'll be getting underway. It will be Taria Fladen leading them in towards turn 1, followed then by Moraine Asset. There's a lot of chopping and changing in the background. It's a great start from Taria Fladen. He's managed to secure that place. Dan Mould with a good start from the outside of row 2. He's worked his way up the inside before we end up at Druids. And he's just about fending off Moraine Asset. Down towards Graham Hill Bend we go. Moraine Asset fighting back. He's looking to the inside at Graham Hill Bend. He does manage to remain in that position. So at the moment, the top 3 are as they stand. Andreas Gilman with a very slidey moment in the background. I think that could have been Bosti Fuse, actually. Yes, it was. So Bosti Fuse all over the grass. Let's ride on board with Scott Malcolm down in towards Graham Hill Bend. He aims for the apex, gets a flick of oversteer, and whilst trying to correct it as best he could, he just made some undue contact with Bosti Fuse. But Taria Flaten's still leading the way quite healthily at the moment, because Moraine Asset and Dan Mould were fighting away. Dan Mould has got Michael Seal all over his tail for BSR. And it's Alan Hewitt, Johns, Gilman, Smith and Denyer rounding out your top 10. All the drivers trading the fastest lap of the race, but Ben Denyer does manage to secure that one, a 52.541 on the first lap of the race. You can hear gravel kicking up off the bottom of the car from Michael Seal. Down towards Graham Hill Bend we go. And Michael Seal is just looking for a way around Dan Mould. Really struggling to try and find the space here at Brands Hatch. A lot of it is flat out, and with it being such a short lap, there's not too many real braking zones that you can go for a lunge into. You've got to set the move up a couple of laps before actually committing to it. So Druids is probably the best bet at the moment. Up towards turn 2 is really where we need to keep an eye out. There is Alfie McCarity. We've got a car cutting the final corner. That was Dan Thornton. I think maybe with a flick of oversteer on the entry, and whilst in his haste to get it pointing the right way, ended up going straight on. Taria Flaten still leading the way. The top 3 still remain as they are, actually. Looking back now from Nick Kent, you can see all over his tail Shane Dunn and Dan Thornton. Shane Dunn looking to work his way up into 26th place. He's not had a great start, has Shane. 10 places lost. We've got a big accident on the exit of Druids Corner. There goes Owen van den Berg up the banking, and we've got cars sat stationary in the middle of the road. We'll try and figure out what has happened there, but that's a lot of cars destined for retirement. So Scott Malcolm gets a tag. He gets a couple there. A lot of drivers getting their elbows out, and they're all pushing each other around, and I think it was just as soon as it really pushed its way into motion, there was no real running away from it, and then just unsighted, and maybe can't react quick enough from a few drivers, and there you go, Scott Malcolm battered and bruised. Riding on board with Ryan Empringham, I think he just unsighted, saw one of, yeah, I think it was Shane Dunn that actually managed to make the heavier of the contact, and then lots of oversteer with the rear axle on the grass. Piled the lock on, put his foot to the floor, and managed to get the car pointing the right way again. But that's lots of cars for what will be in towards retirement. There goes Dan Mould, still trying to push forward. Moraine Asset with the fastest lap of the race, a 49.233, so 0.2 quicker than the car behind, and definitely taking time out of our leader now. So the leader, definitely not safe, is Taria Flaten. You can see Andreas Gilman under pressure from Jack Johns behind, but his main focus is trying to take on Freddie Hewitt just up the road. Hugo Allen not too far in the distance either. There is Michael Seal, still with Hugo Allen all over his tail whilst looking up the inside of Dan Mould. So Dan Mould, the race is not really coming to him in this one. He had a good start, managed to just about work his way to P2 before losing it once again, and he's under pressure from Michael Seal, potentially losing another. Hugo Allen just sat behind as well, has Freddie Hewitt all over his tail. So up towards Druids we go. There is Jack Johns looking up the inside, trying to follow the same gap as Andreas Gilman. There's contact between the pair of them, but Jack Johns managed to get away with it. There's yet more contact, and there's lots and lots of trading of paint. Jack Johns won't take that lying down. He will start to push back. Here is Christopher Smith, the Team ORD, losing a place potentially to Ben Denyer. Ben looking around the outside at the final corner, potentially going for the cutback. There's still the overlap there, so he can't cut back in to try and really maximise the exit, heading towards the start-finish line once again. So still pushing forward. You can see the clouds have come over the first sector. And there's plenty of track evolution on the way. There is Nick Kent looking at the inside of Fraser Garrity, I believe. No, that's Nick Kent losing the place to Owen van den Berg and then losing the tail end of his car as well, working his way towards the infield. A big look up the inside from Neil Butler. You could see on the brakes the car was squirming around, desperately trying to get the car slowed down. Fraser Garrity pushes back though. Through Graham Hill Bend we go. And there's a car up the road all over the grass. I think that was Dan Thornton that might have found a lump towards the inside of the Cooper Straight, which massively unsettled the car. Potentially a little bit of damage there as well. But Peter Jones coming across the line once again in just a few moments' time. Heading towards turn 1 we go, and there's contact between Neil Butler and Fraser Garrity. Neil Butler manages to get away with it. Fraser Garrity sideways in towards turn 1. Got it stopped halfway into the gravel. Let's see what happens. So Neil Butler, I think potentially 2 cars going for the same piece of tarmac, and it's more or less a pendulum effect from there. Very little you can do in the way of avoiding that as soon as it started. So yet more contact and more action in the mid-pack. Michael Seal has Hugo Allen all over his rear wing. Dan Mould will be loving that because it's allowed him to slowly start to pull away and then try and reel in Moraine Azza just up the road. Michael Seal still doing what he can to defend as best he can. Up towards Druids we go. There's no real gap forming there. Still really close in the background as well between Andreas Gilman and Freddie Hewitt. Michael Seal really the main focus at the moment. Hugo Allen is all over the tail, still trying to push forward. But like we mentioned earlier, it's quite a difficult circuit to overtake here at Brands Hatch. Your main objective should be overtaking up and towards Druids. We've got a car off the road. Alfie McCarity has managed to find his way in towards the gravel on the exit of the final corner. Flash of the lights there, I think, from Michael Seal. There is Moraine Asser, under pressure from Dan Mould, still allowing Taria Flarton to pull away while they're wasting time trying to battle each other. But Dan Mould really starting to pile on that pressure, trying to work his way up onto the second step of the podium. 7 minutes of the race have gone. So 2 20-minute races here tonight. Leaves plenty of time still for battling, not only in this race, but of course we've got the next race on the way as well. Dan Mould still pushing forward, doing what he can to apply some pressure to Moraine Asser. Brands Hatch is one of those circuits where one slight mistake can be very, very costly because it's such a short circuit. While the field can spread out, there's very little time between position to position, so if you do make a mistake, it will allow the cars behind to work their way through very, very easily. Taria Flarton fastest lap of the race, a 48.973. There is Tom Holland. Ryan Ambringham all over his tail. Slowly starting to work forward is Ryan. Tom Holland doing the same, up 9 places from where he started. Neil Stevenson also up 9. All over the curb on the exit of turn 1. Up towards Druids we go. Looking back from James Birch, you can see Shane Dunn just about within touching distance. There's lots of potential for overtakes. It's just, I think the opportunities, while they arise, the actual execution can be quite tricky around here. Shane Dunn still trying to work his way by. Gets very, very close on the brakes. There's almost contact between the pair of them. Get the turbo spooled up, using all 350 brake horsepower produced by the 4-cylinder 2-litre turbo engines in these Audi RS3s. Coming towards the line once again. A look to the inside from Shane Dunn on the brakes. There's almost an overlap between the pair of them. Not quite there. However, in the background, Tom Holland loses out to Ryan Empringham. Owen van den Berg just sat behind as well. A big look up the inside from Owen van den Berg. Later on the brakes, forces the position, forces the door open. And Owen van den Berg up into 19th place now. making amends for lost places earlier on in the race. Of course, Ryan Empringham with that place made as well, chasing down his teammate Shane Dunn just up the road. There is Neil Butler for Full Send Racing, applying the pressure onto Dan Thornton. Jack Johns under pressure now from Christopher Smith. Chris looking to the inside at Druids, can't quite force the mistake. Tom Holland has managed to go up a few places. I think maybe Owen van den Berg and Ryan Empringham have had a coming together. Both cars return to the pit lane, so I do think there's been contact between the pair of them, and that has sent both of them in towards retirement. Sideways in towards Druids goes James Birch. Manages to get the car slowed down before making contact with Shane Dunn. Alfie McCarthy works his way out of the way, of course, with the lap traffic. Blue flags will be shown to him. Shane Dunn, having only made that position just a few laps ago, has already started to build up that gap. There is Michael Seal, still with Hugo Allen, just sat behind. Andreas Gilman waiting in the wings, and Freddie Hewitt isn't too far adrift as well. All through the gravel they go. Really maximising the track width. Contact between Hugo Allen and Michael Seal. Just a bit of a nudge heading through Druids. Through Graham Hill Bend once again. And Michael Seal, it seems like he's quick exactly where he needs to be on the exit of corners leading up to Long Straight. So heading onto the Cooper Straight, he's very, very quick. And then heading back onto the start-finish straight, he's very quick through the final corner. You can see the car dancing around on the very edge of adhesion, making the most of all the grip he has available to him. Coming towards the line once again. Over halfway through the race. And Michael Seal still fending off the attentions from behind. You can see Jack Johns has Chris Smith just behind, with Ben Denyer in 10th place, trying to work his way forward. Riding on board with Ben Denyer, up towards Druids we go. Got to be so patient in these cars, not to jump on the throttle too early and let the car understeer wide and in towards the grass and the gravel. Then of course you want to make as many places as you can, so it's a very fine line between racing the cars as quickly as possible but also being as patient as possible. Chris Smith still with Ben Denyer just sat behind. Jack Johns a similar distance in front. You can see the trio coming across the line now. The car in the background is Scott Malcolm, that is a lapped car. There is Michael Seal. Hugo Allen just sat behind. Andreas Gilman in 6th place, looking to work his way forward. Still nose to tail heading in towards Graham Hill Bend. And Michael Seal is just biding his time here. There's no real pressure to work forward. He's been very comfortable in 4th place. There's been no major moves behind, so he can just continue racing his own race and continue working his way forward in regards to the cars behind. So if he just sits exactly where he is and lets the race come to him, he should be sitting rather pretty towards the end of the race. But Hugo Allen now has Andreas Gilman behind, so it's 3 cars all battling away, all for 4th place. Jack Johns still with Chris Smith behind. Ben Denyer well and truly in this battle. So once again there's a trio sparring away up the road. There's a trio going through Druids now. Looking back from Jack Johns, you can see Chris Smith not too far adrift. He's there or thereabouts. It seems like Jack is much better on the brakes than the drivers behind. Ben Denyer still sat in that 10th place. He has been there for quite a sizable amount of the race as it stands. Coming across the line, the top 3 set very similar lap times. Michael Seal still under pressure from Hugo Allen behind. Murray Nasser with Dan Mould within a quarter of a second now. Dan Mould really trying to tip the tables in regards to not only the championship but the Drivers' Championship as well. So of course both drivers racing for different teams. If you can just get by one of potentially your main championship rivals at this stage in the night, it will not only add a little bit of doubt in regards to the Drivers' Championship but the Teams' Championship as well, because it does show somewhat the consistency of Ignium Motorsport. However, there you can see Andreas Gilman, the second of the Impulse Racing drivers, his teammate up in second place. So, still pushing forward is Dan Mould. Murray Nasser doing what he can in regards to defending. Up towards Druids we go once again. And there's still nose to tail. There's no real changes in regards to the aggression or defence being produced by either of the drivers. It's somewhat of a one-way affair. All this is going on, allowing Taria Flaten to only extend that lead margin. 2.7 seconds now, closing up on 2.8. Out of the final corner we go. Murray Nasser still in second place, building up a little bit of breathing room to Dan Mould. But we know the battle ebbs and flows throughout the race. Still with 5 minutes of the race remaining, so lots of action to unfold. There is Taria Flaten working his way through all of the lap traffic. Dom Cottenham and Ryan Empringham being the protagonists in that case. Erwin van den Berg just a second up the road as well. Down the Cooper Straight once again. So too goes Murray Nasser and Dan Mould. So second and third still up in the air. A lot can change. They could come together and make a bit of contact, and it could allow Michael Seal and Hugo Allen to work their way through. Like I say, any mistake around the Brands Hatch Indy circuit can be massively costly to your position. There goes Dan Mould, still sat there in third place. He's doing what he can to keep that pressure on, but it just seems like he's slightly lacking on a little bit of pace, just the pace that he needs to work his way past Murray Nasser. Up through the final corner they will go in just a few moments' time. There is Peter Jones in 20th place, make that 19th. A look up the inside, a little bit of a blink. I think there was contact between the pair of them. Yes, there was. But Peter Jones up into 19th place. Dan Thornton losing out there. So still battling away these two. And we're seeing lots of positional changes up and down the order. You can see the drivers towards the tail end of the order that have been caught up in maybe an incident or a couple of mistakes. There is Bostian Fuss. Neil Stevenson, lights ablaze, flashing away. Just trying to take Bostian's attentions away from the road in front, forcing that mistake in towards turn 1. 3 minutes of the race remaining now. And they're still pushing each other around. Down in towards Graham Hill Bend. And you can see that battle was still raging away. Here is Michael Seal. Hugo Allen, followed then by Andreas Gilman. So just allowing each other to battle away is allowing the drivers up the road to pull away, but it means with no real pressure from any driver behind. They can continue just to battle and have a little bit of fun as they do so. Looking back from Michael Seal, Hugo Allen really close now, very much underneath that rear wing. Andreas Gilman just sat waiting behind. That's a good run through Graham Hill Bend for Hugo Allen. There's almost contact between the pair of them. They were side by side for a brief moment. Hugo Allen lifted out of that throttle just to allow Michael Seal to continue on. Once again, the tail end of Michael's car sideways through the final corner. Got everything gripped up and continued to work forward. Coming across the line now in just a few moments' time. There we go. And once again, it's Hugo Allen sideways in towards turn 1, playing attack and defence. Of course, he's going to have to defend from Andreas Gilman. Attack Michael Seal. He looks to the outside at Druids. Tucks back in behind Michael Seal. Down towards Graham Hill Bend we go. Michael Seal doing a good job of just protecting that place. All over the grass and through all the bumpy bits goes Hugo Allen. That will cost him a little bit of time, so that's quite nice for Michael Seal. He's got a little bit more breathing room. Andreas Gilman can really open the taps now and make the most of that mistake. coming towards the line once again, heading on towards the penultimate lap now. And it's still Taria Flaten leading the way, followed by Murray Nasser. Then it's Dan Mould, Michael Seal, Hugo Allen, Andreas Gilman, Freddie Hewitt, Jack Johns and Chris Smith, who we're looking at the moment. Ben Denye's been sat in 10th place for well over half the race now. Just hasn't really been able to piece together the positional changes he would like. Hugo Allen sat there in 5th place. Been the meat in the sandwich for quite some time. Heading on to what will be the final lap of the race in a few moments' time. One of the drivers in the background there, I think, just working their way out of the way in case there were a bit of lap traffic. Yeah, it was John Johnston just allowing the quicker drivers through. Dan Mould, a big look to the inside at turn 1, took straight back in again. Down through turn 1 for the final time. Once again, a look to the inside from Dan Mould. Murray Nasser just sat in defence at the moment, making sure he gets to the apex first. Heading on towards the Cooper Straight. Murray Nasser just about fending off any further advances. All he's got to do is survive this final corner, and it will be a straight run to the line. But Taria Flaten lights the flag victory from pole position. He got to the front and stayed there, so a good performance in qualifying allowed him to cross the line in 1st place, followed then by Murray Nasser and Dan Mould finishing in 3rd. So run to the line between Michael Seal and Hugo Allen. Michael Seal wins that one out. Hugo Allen finishes in 5th, followed then by Andreas Gilman and Freddie Hewitt. And we go back to Jack Johns in 8th place, Chris Smith and Ben Denyer. A race of what could have been, I think, for Ben. Manages to cross the line in 10th place. A good haul of points for the championship nonetheless. And we will have some more confirmed results. The race is still going on in the background. Tom Holland just trying to fend off Nick Kent for the final time through the final corner. And Nick Kent will be forced to finish in 22nd place in the Tom Ingram-esque Kinsters sponsored machine. But this is how they finished for what will be the 3rd time this season. Of course, races 1 and 2 being at Donington Park, races 3 and 4 tonight here at Brands Hatch. The results are as follows. So, Taria Flaten took to the top step of the podium for the 1st time this season, on the podium for what will be the 2nd time this season. Good haul of points, 3.6 seconds clear of Murray Nasser after fending off the attentions of Dan Mould in 3rd. Then we go back to Michael Seal, Hugo Allen, Andreas Gilman, Freddie Hewitt, Jack Johns, Christopher Smith and Ben Denyer rounds out your top 10. We get back to John Simons, Craig Walters, Bostian Fuchs, Neil Stevenson, Shane Dunn, a good recovery drive from Shane, followed by Jack Newell, James Birch and Neil Butler down in 18th place. So the championship still continuing to get closer, of course. Dan Mould finishing in 3rd is a good haul of points, but with 2 impulse cars up there as well, the team's championship will be very, very close. Peter Jones finishes in 19th place, followed by Dan Thornton, Tom Holland, Nick Kent, Fraser Garrity, Dom Cottenham, William Martin, Mark McCabe, Erwin van den Berg, Scott Malcolm, Ryan Empringham, Alfie McGarrity, John Johnston, Derek Crowther and Leon Gramus not taking to the circuit, I don't believe. But that is how the 33-strong car field finishes the 1st race of the evening. So that's it then, the 1st race of the evening completed. Of course, while we are here at Brands Hatch, we need to continue looking forward into the championship, because the championship is only going to get closer the more and more races we get through. We're just waiting for the various sessions to swap over, and then we will be able to bring race 2 to you. Of course, we have the reverse grid to think about as well, and lots of drivers will be looking to make a comeback. We've seen a few incidents already tonight, and hopefully everything will be cleaned out for what will be race 4 of the season, race 2 of the evening, another 20-minute race on the way, and lots to look forward to. The championship still closer than ever, and of course a lot of drivers came into round 2 of the season nose to tail, some even drawn on points, so tonight is the night really to start taking those steps towards your championship aspirations. And last time out, race 2 of the season, Neil Butler managed to take to the top step. Let's see what he can do in this race. So the second race of the evening, the fourth race of the championship is underway. It's Derek Crowther on pole position. Not a great start from John Johnston. We've got a car hard into the Armco in the background. But at the moment, it's Ryan Empringham and Alfie McCarty. There's big contact in the background. Neil Butler dropping down the order. We've clearly had lots of incidents. Jack Johns returning to the pit lane. So too does Craig Walters. So too does Smith as well. So lots of drivers already destined for retirement. You can see it's all go in the background. This is the battle for the final step on the podium already. All nose to tail. What can Alfie McCarty do in the way of defence? Scott Malcolm sideways in the middle of the road, being pushed by Don Cottenham into the Armco barrier. Don hopefully trying to stop is Don Cottenham. Riding on board with Erwin van den Berg. Let's look forward now. 3 into 1 doesn't go, even more so down the Cooper Straight. And then a big hit in the left-hand door by one of the other drivers as well. Spat across the racing line, and then a big hit there as well. Not what we like to see. So some very big incidents on the first race of the evening. On the second race of the evening, I should say. They clearly didn't get it out of their system. Yet more contact in the background. You can hear doors bashing together. Derek Crowther has had a dream start while that's all been going on in the background. Alfie McCarty and Ryan Empringham still second and third. Shane Dunn looking to work his way into third place. Ryan Empringham out of the race, so too is Tom Holland. So that's now Shane Dunn in what is third place. Bostian Fuse sat there in fourth. Nick Kent just behind, slowly applying that pressure. Nick Kent got away with that first lap, I think, rather lightly. Here's Taria Flaten on the inside of Michael Seal, trading a little bit of paint. Michael Seal forced wide. This is Bostian Fuse still with Nick Kent all over his tail. Bostian currently sat there in fourth place. Passing the pit lane now. Derek Crowther at yet another fastest lap of the race up in the clean air, a 50.828. That's then beaten by Shane Dunn, which is then beaten by Freddie Hewitt, a 50.440 posted by Freddie. Ben Denyer trying to work his way forward, currently sat in 12th place. He's had an okay start. Not a great first race of the night. He managed to pick up a position or two, but couldn't quite really get the momentum. Murray Nasher up into now 12th place. Managed to catch Ben Denyer out on the brace up towards Druids. He's looking to pick up another there. Contact between Murray Nasser and Taria Flaten in towards Graham Hill Bend. Taria Flaten letting his feelings be known. A flash of the lights and I think ferocity of how that move was exploited there. Through the final corner we go. Derek Crowther, fastest lap of the race once again. Lots of drivers all trading times for the fastest lap of the race. Andreas Gilman up into the 49s now, a 49.499, fastest lap of the race for him. John Simons defending third place, looking back now to Peter Jones. Murray Nasser looking up the inside of Peter Jones on the way up towards Druids. He manages to force the door open. There you go. Murray Nasser up into what is now 10th place. Derek Crowther still sitting pretty up at the front. No real stress in regards to that lead battle. Still Alfie McCarty in second place. Shane Dunn in third. Taria Flaten trying to work his way through and past Michael Seal. Michael with a little bit of a wobble on the brakes. That doesn't mean that he washes wide. Taria Flaten trying to squeeze his way up the inside. John Simons bound for the pit lane. So everybody backward from there will all gain a position. Michael Seal defending on the outside, does what he can, but Taria Flaten on the brakes manages to get the move done and arrived at the apex first. He will see the lap traffic ahead of Will Martin. Will Martin getting out of the way, very good stuff from himself. Almost contact in the background, I think that was Ben Denyer and Fraser Garrity, all nose to tail. Up the road you can see Ben Denyer. Let's have a replay of the start. Looking down from the helicopter, you can see Bostian Fuse bogs down a little bit, doesn't get the best of starts. And then it's just unsighted there. Craig Walters straight into the wall and all gets collected in the background. Michael Seal worked his way through and it becomes very much a car park, working the way from the start-finish line right the way until pit exit. Dan Mould, let's ride on board with him, see what happens. You can see Craig Walters spearing across the pack. Jack Johns gets caught in that. And then with the lock still applied, it means that the car spits its way in towards the racing line and in towards the paddock once again, and Dan Mould left with very little to do. Freddie Hewitt taking to the grass and even a little bit of pit wall in avoidance, and it all goes on behind him. Very lucky to get through that was Freddie Hewitt. At the moment, Freddie's right the way up in 5th place. It's been a great start from him. Alfie McCarthy says he's up 27 places, but he did, of course, start on the front row of the grid. There is Ria Flaten in 10th place. Ben Denyer trying to work his way past. I think that's lap traffic. Yes, it is. So Dan Mould doing what he can to recover from the first lap incident. He's trying to work his way past Ben Denyer. So it's Ignium Motorsport versus Ignium Motorsport Spark. While they are sister teams, I'm sure on the racetrack there's nothing related between them, of course, apart from the name. James Birch trying to defend from everybody behind. He's got Marine Asset, Ria Flaten and Michael Seal all queuing up to take 8th place away. There's contact, I think, between Marine Asset and James Birch. Asset really asserting himself so far in this championship. Slowly building up a reputation for a rather firm driver. He will definitely take the touring car name to its limits, really start pushing people, not necessarily out of the way, but just letting them know he's there and his intentions are well and truly voiced across the grid. Up through Druids we go. Michael Seal the meat in the sandwich at the moment. Everybody's managed to work their way past James Birch. Michael Seal now in 10th place, trying to make that 9th, but Ria Flaten is fully focused on working into 8th and getting past Asher. There is Dan Thornton all the way around the outside, almost contact there with Jack Newell. Jack Newell actually was the driver going round the outside. Great stuff from Jack. Somehow managed to get the car slowed down, found the grip on the outside, and that meant that he can work his way even further in towards that top 20. There is Bostian Fuse, still with Andreas Gilman just sat behind. Not too much to pick between the pair of them. Freddie Hewitt only 7/10 up the road. Ria Flaten fastest lap of the race, a 49.067, almost a 48 now. You can see damage on the tail end of Bostian's car. So there's evidently been contact between himself and another driver. Whether it's Andreas Gilman, I don't know. That is rather heavy damage. It's a great run through Graham Hill Bend for Andreas Gilman. He throws the car to the inside for the next left-hander, and then through the final couple of corners, he's got that position made. Very important corner is Graham Hill Bend, of course, leading onto the Cooper Straight. He managed to make that work. Ria Flaten has managed to work his way past Asset. So that's a new driver sat there in 8th place. Alfie McCarthy under pressure from his teammate Shane Dunn at Spud Motorsport. Shane Dunn on the inside on the run up towards turn 1, side by side. Shane Dunn works his way through. Alfie McCarthy, very little defence given. Shane Dunn using all of the road on the exit. So really doing what he can just to make sure he can extend that margin. Freddie Hewitt now has Alfie McCarthy sat on his front bumper, so Alfie will be doing what he can, not necessarily to slow Freddie down, but if he can hamper his progress in towards the podium places, that will definitely be what Alfie would try and do. They're side by side, and then Alfie McCarthy can't really do much in the way of defence there, potentially with a problem, slowly starting to drop back little by little. Andreas Gilman in 5th place, Bostian Fuse in 6th, not too far adrift. So it very much is a battle for the final step on the podium. Here comes the battle we've been watching all race long. Nick Kent has Asser just alongside. And I think that's Michael Seal, not too far behind Asser. Up the inside goes Moraine Asser and does manage to get that position made. Nick Kent now, trying to defend from one driver, has Michael Seal up the inside on the brakes in towards Druids, and he does manage to get the move done there. And he's under pressure from losing another now, in theory. While it won't be a positional change on the road, it will be allowing Dan Mould to unlap himself in the Ignium Motorsport machine. All over the grass on the exit goes Michael Seal. That will have lost him a lot of time. You can hear the rumble strip being used on the entry to the penultimate corner. Nick Kent using all of the road he can, just maximising every piece of momentum. They are fairly powerful cars, 350 brake horsepower produced from the 4-cylinder 2-litre turbo engines, and you've got to drive them like a go-kart really, steer them with the rear as best you can and keep all the momentum up. Bostian Fuse doing what he can to do so. Currently sat in 6th place, looking to make it 5th. Alfie McCarthy dives to the inside to try and defend that place. Through Druids we go once again. So Alfie hasn't really had a break so far this race. He's constantly been defending from one person or another. Ria Flaten waiting in the wings, just watching the battle take place up the road. Looking back now from McCarthy. can see Bostian Fuse getting closer and closer, almost making contact. Damage on the front end of Bostian's car as well. Coming towards the line once again, almost side by side. Bostian jumps in towards the draft, but that does allow Triaflaten to work his way up the inside. So from attack, it's gone to defence, and now position lost for Bostian Fuse. He was so focused on getting past Alfie McGarrity, he let down his guard for just a moment. It's allowed Triaflaten to work his way through, so now it's his job to try and force the mistake and potentially force the door open on Alfie McGarrity. This is the battle for the final spot in the top 5. Riding on board with Triaflaten. So the Norwegian doing what he can just to keep that pressure on, not make a mistake and allow Bostian Fuse behind to work his way through. Almost contact between the pair of them. I think there was a little bump through there, but as is touring car racing, a bump and run never really hurt anybody. John Johnston, the lap traffic, might play a big part in this battle because Alfie McGarrity and Triaflaten, I think, were almost side by side on the run up towards turn 1. Triaflaten has the inside, has the apex and position made, and now you can see in the background Bostian Fuse looking to the outside on the exit. It will be the outside for Druids. If he can hold it all the way around, it will evolve to the inside for Graham Hill Bend, and I think he just about might be able to do that. You can see now as well Moraine Asset trying to follow him through, and that might be the case as well. So through Graham Hill Bend we go. Great stuff from Alfie McGarrity. He does manage to squeeze in that perfect Audi RS3 TCR sized gap. So he does manage to hold on to that 7th place, albeit for the moment. Derek Crowther still leading the way. A little flick of oversteer on the exit from Alfie McGarrity. I think that has slightly hampered his momentum heading onto the straight. Moraine Asset has the somewhat inside line for the straight, so he will travel a shorter distance on the run up towards turn 1. They are trading places on the timing screen on the run up towards turn 1. And Asset has managed to work his way in a big swipe up the inside from Dan Mould, I think, forcing Alfie McGarrity almost in towards the gravel. Michael Seal worked his way through. I don't think Dan Mould was really aware that Alfie McGarrity was going to be on the brakes quite that hard in avoidance of Moraine Asset up the inside. It somewhat misjudged, I think, from both drivers there. Both cars going for the same piece of tarmac. You can see now Freddie Hewitt, having got past Alfie McGarrity just a few laps ago, he's slowly been chipping away at Shane Dunn. Coming towards turn 1 once again, looking back from Shane Dunn, you can see Freddie Hewitt really applying that pressure. He gets a great run through turn 1, through Paddock Hill Bend, up towards Druids. It will be the inside. Who's going to be last of the late breakers? Freddie Hewitt is the answer to that one. It will be on the inside. He runs Shane Dunn out on towards the marbles and the dirty surface. So Freddie Hewitt up in towards 2nd place. Shane Dunn down to 3rd, although he's not going to take it lying down. He's all over the tail, all underneath the rear wing of Hewitt in front. Through the left-hander we go once again, up towards McLaren and Clearways. And we've got a car heading in towards the wall there. It wasn't Peter Jones. I'll try and pick out who that was. Can't quite figure out who that was that got caught up in that. But back to this battle. Scott Malcolm has Peter Jones just sat behind, not too far adrift, almost half a second separating the pair of them. Someone's gone for a trip through the gravel. You can see gravel still lingering in the air, and the tyre tracks remain in that gravel trap. That's at the final corner. There is Freddie Hewitt, slowly extending that margin and making himself more and more comfortable in 2nd place. Shane Dunn, having only lost 2nd place a few laps ago, pushing him down into 3rd. He's under pressure of being kicked off the podium. Andreas Gilman just sat behind. 6 minutes of the race remaining now. So Andreas Gilman is running out of time to work his way on towards those 3 steps on the podium. But if he keeps applying that pressure, he could almost force the mistake. You can see just up the road, Triaflaten has extended that lead margin. Moraine Asset has Michael Seal just sat behind. Not too much to pick between them. Dan Mould, the lap traffic separating them. There is Nick Kent under a little bit of pressure. I think he can't choose to hang around too much. Ben Denyer 1.5 seconds back, and Nick Kent really focusing all of his attentions on Alfie McGarrity, so he's got to be careful not to slow himself down too much, because Ben Denyer, we know he's a formidable driver and he will work his way through at every opportunity he can get, and that is what's happening now. You can see the gap between the pair of them, between Nick Kent and Ben Denyer on the left hand side of your screen, has come down to around about half a second. Tom Holland currently sat there in 19th place. trying to work his inroads to the drivers in front. There's Chris Smith battling Craig Walters, who has retaken to the circuit after the very sizable lap 1 incident. Still out and circulating, which is obviously great to see. He's still pushing for those championship points. Through the quick left of Surtees, then the right of McLaren and the another right of Clearways. Shane Dunn still in 3rd place as it stands. Andreas Gilman sat there in 4th, doing what he can to push forward. Ria Flaten only 1.1 seconds back, so not too much separating those 3 drivers. But Andreas Gilman is very quickly running out of time. Last time we checked it was 6 minutes. This time it's only 4 minutes, so he needs to get the move done if he's going to get it done this race. Nick Kent trying to work his way past Alfie McGarrity. Like I say, Ben Denyer, if he hangs around too much in the way of Nick Kent, Ben Denyer will be all over his tail, and that is exactly what's happened. Fraser Garrity sat there in 11th place, not too far back. Scott Malcolm will have the best seats in the house watching all this go on up the road. He's managed to build up a 1 second margin between himself and Peter Jones. Up towards Druids we go once again. Alfie McGarrity did the defensive line, doing what he can to defend from Nick Kent, but all the way around the outside. He gives it a go. He was slightly later on the brakes. There's almost an overlap there, and there is contact. Both drivers continue on. Bit of a squirrely moment for Alfie McGarrity. Kept the car pointing in the right direction. Nick Kent is letting Alfie know that he is desperate to get by. Now only 3 minutes of the race remaining. Looking back from Alfie McGarrity, the Tom Ingram liveried Ginster's Audi all over the rear wing. The trouble is here at Brands Hatch, it's somewhat of a corner is the start-finish straight, so you might get a great run, but as long as that lead driver hugs that white line towards the pit wall, they will always arrive at turn 1 first. And a mistake there from Nick Kent, went too hot in towards turn 1. Massive oversteer as soon as the crest arrived. And after battling for 1 position, he's managed to lose 3. He lost out to Ben Denyer and Fraser Garrity there, and I think Scott Malcolm worked his way through. Yes, he did. Now Peter Jones is just sat behind Nick Kent, so Nick has gone really from bad to worse, but Derek Crowther sitting pretty up at the front, or so we thought. Half a second separating himself and Freddie Hewitt. Freddie, the standout driver for me tonight. He's really been pushing forward. That's Dan Thornton, I think, all the way through the gravel. Couldn't quite get the car slowed down. Freddie Hewitt up the inside, later on the brakes. Derek Crowther loses the lead. So from the first lap of the race, Derek Crowther was leading, and in the last 2 minutes, Freddie Hewitt, after a great drive through the back, has worked his way up into the lead and potentially towards the top step of the podium, barring any further mistakes. Derek Crowther having lost the lead under pressure from losing 2nd place now, because Shane Dunn is all over his tail. Andreas Gilman just sat behind, so too is Ria Flaten. So after losing the lead, given any mistake, it could demote him right the way down into 5th place. So Derek's got to be careful here not to really dwell on that lost lead. So in towards turn 1 once again we go. And at the moment, it's Andreas Gilman sat there in 4th place, not too far adrift. He has a little look to the inside. You can see Shane Dunn on the outside, still holding on to that 3rd place. Andreas Gilman all over his tail. Derek Crowther still sat there in 2nd. He hasn't got too much pressure from behind anymore. Looking back from Shane Dunn, you can see just how close Andreas Gilman is. Ria Flaten, best seats in the house, just watching this all unfold in front of him. Through McLaren and Clearways we go. And Ria Flaten has managed to work his way up the inside of Andreas Gilman. So Ria Flaten up into 4th place, Andreas Gilman down into 5th. Flash of the lights from Freddie Hewitt, just letting the back markers know up the road that he is on his way. Of course, the last thing you want to do, having gained the lead in the final couple of minutes of the race, is to lose it because of back markers up the road. You can see now Freddie Hewitt, he's got to be careful not to lose too much time, because there is definitely those lapped cars that could potentially slowly start to play havoc with him. Dom Cottenham being the first of the drivers he will meet. Then it will be William Martin. Shane Dunn a little look to the inside of Derek Crowther on the run up towards Surtees. Through McLaren and up towards Clearways we go. And Taria Flarton opens that door. He forced it open. He had a little look to the inside, and it has now evolved into what will be third place. So Shane Dunn on the outside, and that is now destined for fourth place, because we go on to the final lap of the race. Shane Dunn on the outside as we cross the line. So on to the final lap of the race we go. Shane Dunn doing what he can in the way of defence. Andreas Gilman all over his tail now. Freddie Hewitt has managed to work his way past the lap traffic. Andreas Gilman looks to the outside of Shane Dunn. He can't quite get the move done. He will meet Will Martin, I think, halfway round the corner. Will, great stuff once again, making sure he gets out of the way and doesn't hamper this lead battle. Freddie Hewitt doing what he can to try and get past Don Cottenham. You can still see Derek Crowther sat there in second place. Taria Flarton, good stuff through the pack for himself. He's been battling all race long, trying to work his way up towards the podium places, and having done it on the lap before, he might do it on the lap later as well, pushing for what is now second place. There is contact between the pair of them, and Derek Crowther trying to force him in towards Don Cottenham just to slow him down, but towards the line for the final time this evening. Freddie Hewitt takes the win, and Taria Flarton crosses the line in second place. Derek Crowther rounds out his evening in third place, having led the race for such a sizable amount of time. You can see now Nick Kent and Fraser Garrity door to door. Nick Kent works his way up in towards 10th place, so will it be Nick that rounds out the top 10 this evening? Yes, it will. Good stuff from the drivers, and the battles start as soon as the green flag is waved and finish as soon as the checkered flag is waved, so battling all race long. Derek Crowther does round out your podium. Then it's Shane Dunn and Andreas Gilman in 5th place. Nick Kent, having picked off Fraser Garrity on the final corner, rounds out your top 10. So the 4th race of the season and the 2nd race of the evening finishes as follows. Freddie Hewitt for FHR does a brilliant performance this evening. Definitely the driver of the day for me. He does take to the top step of the podium ahead of Taria Flarton, and Derek Crowther finishes in 3rd place. Shane Dunn in 4th, Andreas Gilman in 5th, followed by Michael Seal, then Ben Denyer, Alfie McGarity, Scott Malcolm and Nick Kent rounds out your top 10. There's Fraser Garrity, Peter Jones, John Simons, James Birch, Bostian Fuse, Jack Newell, Tom Holland and Dom Cottenham, the first of the drivers, one lap down. But here at Brands Hatch, it's only around about a 49-50 minute lap time, so being a lap down really isn't as bad as it sounds. And in a race where there was lots of action right from the get-go, a few sizable incidents, it doesn't surprise me we've got a few drivers a few laps down. Followed by Dan Mould, then Dan Thornton, and it's Jack Johns, Christopher Smith, Craig Walters, Hugo Allen, William Martin, Murray Nasser, right the way down in 26th place. Then it's John Johnston and Ryan Embringham retiring in the very opening stages of the race. So the 4th race of the season, wow, he couldn't really get any closer. And we get the final few finishes of Neil Stevenson, Erwin van den Berg, Mark McCabe, Neil Butler and Leon Gramus, all the drivers retiring very, very early on in that race. But a very busy night nonetheless, all the drivers pushing for those championship points. And now you can see how tonight has affected the championship standings. We have a new championship leader, Taria Flarton, manages to launch himself up towards the top of the championship standings, 181 points, ahead of Dan Mould down in 2nd place now, followed by Michael Seal up 10 places. So great stuff from Michael Seal, followed then by John Simon, Shane Dunn, Murray Nasser, Bostian Fuse, Ben Denyer, Jack Johns and Andreas Gilman up 14 places on 115 points, tied for 9th place with Jack Johns. Then we get back to Chris Smith, Craig Walters, Neil Butler, Jack Newell, Freddie Hewitt, James Birch, Derek Crowther and Scott Malcolm. Neil Butler, not a great night for himself, of course, winning race 2 last time out and then getting collected in that first lap incident here at Brands Hatch. That really won't help his championship aspirations, and at this stage in the championship I've always said the first and the final races are the most important for your championship hopes. Then we get back to Neil Stevenson, Nick Kent, Fraser Garrity, Alfie McGarity. Then it's Tom Holland, Dom Cottenham, Mark McCabe, Dan Thornton, Chris Ems and Hugo Allen in 28th place. And to round out your championship standings, it's Erwin van den Berg, Peter Jones, Dennis Ronsdorf, Leon Gramus, Ryan Embringham, William Martin, Philip McMahon. Then it's John Johnson, Fiona Siddons and Andrew Lovesley. I don't think will be playing any further part in the championship. But what a race that was. Once again, the VBTCR Championship hasn't disappointed. Ignium Motorsport stay up at the top of the team standings, 20 points ahead of Impulse Racing. Then it's Spud Motorsport in 3rd place, followed by Ignium Motorsport Spark, the top 4 remaining as they are. Luminous Racing managed to thrust themselves into 5th place, up 5 places as well. followed by Simply Digi Racing. Then it's Insignia Racing, Team ORD, Marshmallow Racing, BSR, and you can see how the final 8 teams finish out the team standings. So the championship still very much up for grabs. It just takes a couple of bad races and potentially yourself, and even more so your team, can really be struggling points-wise. But Ignition Motorsport and Impulse Racing getting closer and closer in the championship and the driver standings. But the fourth race of the season, the second race of the night, is of course completed, and that brings an end to round 2. So the VBTCR Championship, as always, getting closer and closer. The championship standings, once again, throwing a spanner in the works after the lap 1 incident in race 2 and the few incidents we saw in race 1. So we've got a lot to look forward to. It's all to play for still here in the championship, and it's all down to now how the drivers can really make the most of their 2-week break for the preparations ahead of the next round. Of course, the 2-week break will be broken up by this broadcast, so the drivers will have their race week, then the broadcast week, then the race week, then the broadcast week. So there's never really a dull moment for these drivers, and we've got all that to look forward to once again. So join us once again in a week's time for the next race, and it's 2 weeks until the next broadcast. So until then, bye bye.